radio now comes with moving pictures. The Jim Colbert Show on YouTube. Subscribe and watch.
Colbert Show, greetings. Always a pleasure, man. Anyhow, Jim, just to give you some precise information after doing a few different Google searches, 1 billion seconds would take 32 years, and 1 trillion seconds would take 31,688 years.
For the record.
Yeah, I double checked that. You actually triple checked to make sure.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
What I love
This
about
is Jack being an a-hole, is what this is.
Yeah, well, it's what I do.
Yeah, I know.
But I love the fact that for the first 15 seconds, it could have been any topic we were talking about, and then it came through with that.
You can't make an error on this show, Scott. You cannot even come close to making an error. Even an error that you only barely made wrong, you're going to get hammered for it. Talk to the catfish. All right, your 5 o'clock keyword is grand, G-R-A-N-D. Go to realradio.fm and send that up for your chance at $1,000. Welcome back. I am Jim. There's Deb.
Hello.
Jack is here as well.
He is.
Let's do It's Only Money.
Helping people passionate about planning for their future rise above investment myths to build real wealth. Isn't that really just common sense financial advice? It's both. Oh. Okay. It's Only Money with Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth.
Good and loud for our friend Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth.
Woohoo!
Hello.
Big Doggy, what's up, man? Good to see you. How's things?
Things are fantastic. You know, we had an event in Mount Dora. Actually, we had an event in both Winter Park and Mount Dora.
We know because someone texted us and said what a great time that they had.
The Mount Dora, I mean, they were both awesome, but the crowd at Mount Dora was pretty stoked.
Oh, yeah, really?
And I got to tell you, it was cool. First of all, as we've discussed, 1921 is an outstanding.
Yeah.
The cheeseburger?
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Don't come for me. Come for the cheeseburger. Because the cheeseburger is, and I think like 8 out of 10 people got the cheeseburger, and it's fantastic. But I will tell you, the enthusiasm was, and it was wall-to-wall people. We were pretty packed. But everybody tolerated that well, and we had, Greg, of course, spoke, and I spoke, and it was really a receptive group. They asked a lot of amazing questions. There's a lot of people writing stuff down. And then after the event, what was cool is I got to mingle with a lot of these people. We had a pretty diverse group. We had young people who were kind of in the beginning acquiring stage, and some people who I call refiners, which are, they're getting in the red zone, and soon,
tuning it up.
What's getting real now.
Yeah, right.
And so we had a good group, so they got to hear all kinds of different takes on different things, but I got to talk to like half a dozen, maybe even a dozen people at the end, and they hung around for 20, 30 minutes, and that was super cool, just getting to hear what people enjoyed or what they wanted, what they learned or what they took away. And the weird part is everybody takes something different
Sure,
away.
yeah.
I mean, you'll talk to 10 people and you get 10 different things that they went, I really liked this. So, the events have been fantastic, and we got a couple of noobs coming up.
Yeah, I saw that. May 22nd, that one's going to be at Roost Chris in Winter Park. That's an 11 a.m. event. And then on May 24th, back at Mount Dora.
Yes, sir.
At 11:30 in 1921.
Yeah.
It's a fun spot, right?
I love that spot. So you can go to edgewaterfamilywealth.com. And sign up for either of those events. Those dates should be on there. And if you can't, I want to emphasize this because sometimes I think people forget. If you can't come to an event, you can always give us a shout on edgewaterfamilywealth.com to schedule a consultation.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down here as well, because I want everybody to understand if they did not make it to one of the events, if the timing doesn't work out for them. And I know that you said you're working on something for the weekend for the people who can't make the lunch events, which is going to be great, by the way, for you if you do that, because I know a lot of people are very interested.
To that end, we actually have the date. I just don't want to let it out right this second.
All right, very good.
Because we got to iron out a few details, but we've kind of picked a between location that I think everybody's going to like, and I will be announcing that date next week.
Yeah, very nice. But if you can't make it to one until we kind of figure out what we can do for the evenings to get you guys who work 9-to-5ers out there, you can just go to edgewaterfamilywealth.com and sign up for a consultation. Doesn't cost anything for that.
You can do a phone call. If you just need 10 minutes on the phone to figure something out, we'll try to help you with that. If you want to come into the office, obviously you're welcome to come in.
For sure. Scott, of course, has been doing this for 37 years here in Central Florida, helping people with their money, getting it in the right place, doing the right thing, and teaching people how to build wealth. And it's common people building wealth. This is not, a lot of people, we get a lot of flack sometimes about people like, oh, this is just for rich people. It is not. Matter of fact, the reason we do this is because it's not for rich people.
To make more rich people.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build rich people.
That's the whole thing is we really use this as a service,
Yeah.
and I get to pick and choose what segments are on the show. And I thought, well, this would be a really really good segment because when I was younger, I would have loved to have heard this on a show that was somebody who really has a great reputation, works with integrity, and has been doing this for a long time, giving me some advice to some things that I can realistically reach out and grab and make my life a little bit better.
Yeah, it's like I've said many times, it's not complex, it's hard, but that's a little bit of an exaggeration because the reality is there's some complexities to this. There's some things to think about, some nuance. In fact, we had a person, a gal, we'll call her Kay because I don't want to throw her name out on the air, but she came in today and sat down with the team and we talked about her pending retirement. She's dealing with some health challenges, and those health challenges brought on Social Security and Medicare questions that I didn't know the answer to. Well, Greg was right down the hall, so I grabbed him. He came, there's 5 of us staring at this poor lady trying to help her out, but she was so, I mean, her vibe was so cool. She's such a sweet person and we're excited to be working with her, but this is somebody who otherwise would have maybe just gone the rest of her life not getting these questions answered. And there's at one point in the conversation, she asked a question about Social Security, and between the 4 of us, we figured out she needed to make a change that might substantially affect her Social Security to the tune of about $4 or $5 grand a year for the rest of her life. And it took us about a half hour, 45 minutes to get there. But once we got there, we realized this is a substantial breakthrough for this person.
Yeah. And you can see it's the knowledge thing. It's just getting, I mean, Jack and I've talked about this before. It's just kind of finding out what you don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's one of those things where you're just like, I wonder what's on that other side of the door. It's not going to hurt you to open it. But yet, for some reason, you just won't open it because you don't think you're up for the challenge of getting there. But if you just open it, you'll find out nothing's going to happen, just good stuff.
And when you correct a situation like that, like Kay had with what you guys uncovered, or, I go and you just get a little piece of advice. Oh, why don't you try this? There's a feeling that comes with it, just like when you're on the right path and you can just, all those questions that you had swirling around, you can just, that for years maybe, you just put those aside because you get that affirmation and confirmation that, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, there's when you're young and you're just starting out, some of the things you kind of know what you need. You need to kind of reduce your debt. You need to save more. These are kind of known things. So your level of complexity may not be super high, but you need somebody to kind of say, don't do this and do that. It's more of a, kind of a father or mother figure saying, hey, stop doing that thing. And some of us need that. I certainly needed it when I was young. As you get older, there are some complexities. There are unknowns for you. And as the complexity rises, I say in the event, I always tell people that there's stress when you're young because the stress comes from how do I pay the electric bill? How am I going to feed this kid I just had? All those sort of things. And then somewhere in the middle in your 40s, maybe you accumulate a little bit money and there's a little less money stress. But as time goes on and you accumulate money, these rich people were trying to create, right? That creates complexity again and brings on a whole nother different kind of stress. So at both ends of that I'm describing, we're trying to eliminate the stress.
Now, Scott, the market was down 570 points today. Should I jump out this window?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
I mean, you're only on the 4th floor, so you might just hurt yourself.
All right, so the things you sent over this morning to talk about was this. And this one, I love this because I don't even understand this first one at all.
Yeah.
This is people feel less than average because of what they think they see.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Nietzsche thing. What do you mean by that? People feel less than average because of what they think they see.
I've never been compared to Nietzsche before, but that's really
joke.
high cotton we're in right now. But so the what happens to people is they see a person that they think is wealthy or rich is probably the term they would use. They're driving a nice car, they have a fancy house, they dress nicely, and to them that makes them kind of feel less than. It's more of a status thing, like my status seems to be below. But what you can't do is you can't confuse success with status. They are two entirely different things. And I'll tell you a quick story. One day I was driving my teenage daughter. She was probably like 13 or 14 at the time. And as everybody that listens to the show knows, I've lived in the same little College Park bungalow for 32 years, right? Same little house. And it's not huge and it's not particularly fancy. It's just home, baby. Right? So I kept saying my daughter would go to other people's houses. Now, my daughter went to a private school where the folks there have or appear to have quite a bit of wealth. And so we're driving home. I picked her up. I went someplace, Bay Hill or Isleworth or somewhere, and I was bringing her home. And I said, honey, how come you never have people to our house? And she was kind of sheepish about it. She's kind of like, well, our house isn't, she wanted to insult me. She don't want to say our house sucks, right? But what she said was, well, I don't, they have nicer, bigger, whatever, And I was like, listen. So I said, look, I get that. I understand that. You're a teenager. Those sort of things are important. But I also want you to understand the difference between looking like you're wealthy and actually being wealthy, right? So I went on to explain, and I'm not saying the person she was visiting wasn't wealthy. That's not my point. My point is that these people appear to be wealthy to her because they drive a fancier car and live in a gigantic home. And I said, a lot of times, those people have more debt than they have money, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I explained it to her, and I did the best I could not to be off-putting, but I could see slowly the light bulb coming on in her head where she was almost like, oh, I never thought of it that. So you don't want to be like a teenager, I guess is my point, is you don't want to seek status over success.
Right, because, I mean, you think that watch makes you, something special, and really it just,
Just means you're leveraged and probably in more debt than...
Yeah.
I remember saying this. I knew somebody who got a Rolex, right?
Yeah.
And they made payments on it.
Oh, no.
And I said, nothing says baller like payments on your Rolex.
Yeah. What kind of rate did you get on that thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're walking around with a $30,000 watch on, you better be worth 7 figures plus, right?
Well, yeah, they say you should be able to buy it twice, right?
Yes,
You better be able to buy it
absolutely.
twice.
You should be able to lose it and not care.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the second thing, because this is another one. They're not going to talk about the rate of return you earned at your funeral.
Yeah.
Now, this one seems a little brutal, and is this one of those things like where if you overthink the situation, it will kind of consume you a little bit?
Yeah, so the things we hear at funerals are, Jim was a good guy. He gave to charity. He donated his time. He was a good father. He was a good husband. He was this, that, or the other.
2 for 5.
Yeah, okay. So I went astray there for a second. But they're going to say things like that, whether they're true or not, Jim. They're going to say those things, right? What they don't say is, Jim did really good trades. He bought Microsoft at 40 and it went to 150. And then I remember the time he bought Bitcoin. Boy, was that outstanding. Yeah. And they're not going to put on your headstone earned 9%. Right? So my point in all of this is people are so caught up in the number. I earned 9, I earned 8, I earned 6, I earned 2, I lost, whatever. And I'm not saying the numbers are unimportant. That's kind of your advisor's job. But the reality is the number doesn't matter as long as you're successful. So if you say, I want to travel, I want to go to Europe once a year, I want to get a new car every 5 years, I want to be able to give to my college, and I want to put my grandkids through school, and you're able to do those things regardless of the return, whether you earn 2 or you earn 20, right? Regardless of the return, if you did those things, you were successful. You were, just because you didn't earn 9 or 11 or 12, people get so bent on. And I'll tell you another thing: the market doesn't care what you need to earn.
Right? Yeah.
The market's not going, well, I think Jim needs 11, so let's put that out this year. Right? That's not how it works. So you have to focus on what is success. And what I try to tell people is, let's decide what success is and back into a number rather than starting with a show-off number.
Right, or, and it's a long-term game to begin with, right? When you play poker, you can't lose one time and say, I'm a terrible poker player, because you're going to play a lot more in your life, and it could even out kind of thing. And I have found that is the key. You have to just kind of forget about it. That's what I've done. Like, I just forgot about it. I just put my money where I think it's okay, and we just forget about it.
Yeah, you need to be okay with the pain, right? Like, it's like working out.
I
it's
felt
like,
it today.
Yeah, well, so why... I don't want to work out because it hurts, right? Well, then you're not going to be in good shape, right? That's the end of the story. So if you can't deal with the pain, if you can't deal with the pain of not buying something, or not buying a lot of something, or not living in a fancy place for a little while, or not getting a new car every 3 years, that might feel uncomfortable to you for a second. But Deborah's shaking her no. But for some people, the lack of status immediately costs them this status down the road. Because if you go to a class reunion, your high school reunion, you go to your 30th or 40th reunion, whatever it is, and you walk in a billionaire because you went through the pain, nobody cares about the kid that was 20 and had the fancy truck with the big wheels, right?
They do not care.
Right. So again, at that point in your life, you have to realize that where you are, I like to tell people, the amount of risk you have to take later in life is purely dependent on the amount of responsibility and discipline you've shouldered to that point. So if you've gotten to that point and you need to earn 20%, is because you've been irresponsible to that point.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you get yourself in a situation where you need to crawl out of a hole to even get back to even to begin with.
That's why get-rich-quick schemes are so viable for people, because they're in a position where they have to get rich quick, right? So if you've taken the time to get rich slowly and now you're 59 and you're about to retire in 4 or 5 years, you don't need to worry about Bitcoin or lottery tickets or should I buy gold or should I not buy gold? Because over the last 40 years, you've done enough to make sure you don't even have to have those conversations.
Let me ask you a question. Do you deal with people, like when people come in and they start talking to you about, now I know that you're a portfolio, well, not a portfolio manager per se.
Well, we do that, yeah.
Yeah, I know you do that as well.
Yeah.
But when people come in and they say, hey, look, I want to plan or whatever, do you start with stuff as small as like their credit score? Do you start that low, or is it granular at that point, and then you look at them and go, hey, look, this is what we need to work on first, then we'll do this, then we do this, but we got to get this to a certain point, that to a certain point, because I hear that a lot these days with people who come in, they as they were younger, they kind of wreck their credit score a little bit, and they feel like it's hopeless now, that they hear 7, 8, 10 years to get it better, and they just kind of don't really have the gumption to do that. Do you guys even start at that level?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll get granular. I mean, very frequently somebody will come in and they'll say, look, I've had these mistakes. I've got this debt. I've got this credit card problem. I don't really have much in savings. We'll say, look, it's fine. We're going to build a plan for you, but you're not going to invest with us anytime soon. We need you to go back and fix these basic things. And it might take you a year. It might take you 3 years. And when you're done, come back and see us once you fix these 3 big things. And you're right. A lot of people will be discouraged by that it may take them a little longer than they were. Again, they're coming and hoping I'll say, well, I'll earn you 50% a year and it'll all be fixed, right?
You're all good.
That's simply not going to happen. So the reality is, yes, when people come in, very frequently we say, fix these debt problems. I call it the Ramsey system, right?
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey's notorious for this,
Sure.
and I think rightfully so. He deserves credit for that. The base level stuff, get rid of the debt, create some savings, and then come back and see us in 2 or 3 years when we're able to help you with what we do.
Yeah. Is that the number one problem young people make, is they let their credit get away from them, or they assume too much debt or whatever because they want to kind of live a little bit of a life they're not quite ready for yet? Do you see that a lot when you...
Yeah, they're putting status ahead of success.
Sure, yeah, exactly,
right? And when you're young, you care what people... I still care what... I could lie and say, I don't care what anybody thinks, but that's a lie. I do care what people think to some degree, less than when I was younger,
Sure.
right? But when you're a young person, status isn't... You're young, you don't really know how life really works, and you're like, I want people to think I'm cool.
You think there's value in that?
You do think there's value in that, and the reality is it's very fleeting, if at all. So I think, again, at the end of the day, if you can say to yourself as a 21-year-old, and you can say, I truly don't care what people think about this. I'm not getting the nice car. I'm not wearing the nice clothes until I have a solid foundation of savings.
Yeah,
under me.
and it's so funny how much psychology is involved with this math. Because really what you're talking about is you're really teaching people a different lifestyle, and it just happens, the benefit of that, the byproduct of that is a financial stability. But really you're basically teaching life traits as well.
Yeah, I think if you say something to the effect of, if I'm disciplined for the first 5 or 10 years of my life, I can live the next 20 or 30 like nobody else, right? If I'm more disciplined than others, initially, I can live better than others for the next 20 or 30 years. And that is, first of all, so satisfying, and it's also habit forming. I think, I talked to somebody with zero in their 401k. They're not that excited about it, but they'll put the $50 in or the $100, and then I see them in 2 or 3 years, they got $12,000, $15,000. Suddenly, the conversation has changed. Now, $15,000 isn't going to change their life today, but they now see the fact that before, when they had $100 in and the market went up 10%, they made $10. Now they got 20 grand in, the market goes up 10, they made $2,000,
Sure
right?
thing.
Now you start to see the beauty of compounding. You understand that largesse matters. You understand that discipline matters.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens with a lot of people who who text us. They get in a little bit of a hole. They get themselves they do the woe is me thing. And the great thing about coming to see you guys over at Edgewater Family Wealth is you can really kind of talk them into a situation where they can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why we like supporting you guys, because I know you do that and have been doing it for years.
Yeah, we're excited to help. I was telling the team the other day, I'm like, honestly, this is more fun than just about anything, because most of our clients do have some wealth. And if you're out there and you're looking to refine your portfolio, that's obviously something we do. But one of the greatest, I've said this for years about 401ks. A person can walk into my office with $2, $3, $4 million, and I'm going to provide them a really outstanding, valuable service, but I'm probably not going to entirely change their life. If I convince somebody in a 401k meeting who's 25 years old to save $200 or $300 a month, I will literally change their life.
You will.
That's just the way I look at it.
And the other good thing is what Jack and I are using this for as well. And as we approach that 60-year mark where you're 60, 61, you're thinking about possibly making a move. The great thing about Scott's company is you go in there and go, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'd like to sell this house, move here. I'd like to play golf 3 times a week. And my wife and I'd like to travel 1 nice trip a year. What do I need to do? And they will literally build a plan for you that you can follow step by step to get to that point. That's what's great about it. It takes all the trouble out of it for you. You build a plan. You say follow these rules and call me in a while.
Yeah, it's not ambiguous. I think one of the things we do really well is I call it the spreadsheet of life, where we chronologically print out basically a spreadsheet. You said you want to do this. You want to retire at this age. You want to save this much. You want to go to Europe. You want to buy a car. You want to do all these things. You want to give to your kids. And this shows you're 62 years old, and this shows till you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? And it shows you in math form that you can hold in your hand, this is what's likely to happen at varying rates of return.
Love it, love it, love it. Remember the 2 locations coming up. It's May 22nd, the 24th. The 22nd is at Ruth's Chris in Winter Park.
Yep.
That's going to go down around 11 o'clock. And I think the 1921 in Mount Dora event, which is at the 24th, just a couple days after that, is happening at 11:30. Will both of your specialists be there?
They will.
Yeah, now that's the Social Security guy and the...
We'll have a real estate... Actually, I take that back. We got a little bit of a twist this time. We're going to have an estate attorney. At both of these events.
Very nice.
Yeah, so if you have a trust, will, estate question, this will be the one to come to.
Very good. Again, that's EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com. 2 books out there as well to help you kind of smooth into this.
Yeah, we got I Never Made Anyone Rich, which is not a great title, but still a good book, which you can download. And I Got a Guy, which is a guide to using a financial advisor you can get at EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com.
You're the best, buddy. Always good seeing you. Again, it's EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com. Good and loud for Scott Brown.
Yay! Woo!
Thank you.
Load them up. And remember, make those reservations. It costs nothing to go to this, and you get to do free lunch, and you get information that could change your life. Jack, can affirm that?
Yeah, I want to go again. If I stand in the corner and don't eat, can I show up?
You're allowed to eat. You can eat.
Nice.
We'll see you next week. All right, 407-916-1041. Load them up. We have tickets to Judson's Live on tap for trivia. We'll do that next.